All right, welcome back. We are Jonathan Detweiler to my right, Greg Linville, and we are hosting this training session, CSRM Sports Outreach Ministry Training. And what we are doing is trying to help both you as an individual sports person and also local churches figure out how to do evangelistically based disciple making. And we are in a foundational topic, and we are now in our third session for our foundational topic. We have talked first of all about sports ministry in the local church. We've talked about overcoming the two disconnects of how to get people into the sports ministry programs, go to seek them out, and then deliver them eventually into the local church. And now on our third session, we are going to be talking about sports ministry, missional sports ministry. So, Jonathan is an expert around the world, has been in 70 countries helping people do this, and we at CSRM have been in operation for over 2 decades of actually helping people figure out how to do missional sports outreach, or all things to all people. And to help us to do this whole training session, we're working on a philosophy of training, theological truth, philosophical principles, methodological models. So you're going to see this three-tiered paradigm in operation throughout what we do. And Jonathan, if you could help us a little bit now with setting the stage for this missional. What does it mean to be missional in sports ministry?
Yeah, well, we're talking about the difference between attractional and missional. And the model that the church has had for many years and has used somewhat effectively, and very effectively in some countries, is an attractional model. And that's a model where the church says, I'm going to put on an activity, I'm going to put on an event, and the people are going to come to me because they hear about it, because they're interested in it, because they want to see it. But that's on a foundation that the person has a desire to seek and to know God. And we believe that every person does, but in our postmodern society and culture, the distance between the church and the world is just getting larger.
And that first area of disconnect, we can't even get them into the sports realm.
Right.
And so, as we said last time, Brian Mason has coined the phrase that Christians play well at home. Right. Come to us, but we don't play so well away.
Right. And so this whole idea of becoming missional now is being lived out through what we're calling a missional sports community. And so we're trying to expand that vision for you and also that definition. So what you see on your screen here is a missional community that is defined by a group that I know and I've actually partnered with called Global Church Movements out of Campus Crusade. And so these are the things that they lay out to define a missional community. Now, I want you to just take this as one definition. We're not saying that this is our definition or this has to be your definition, but
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it gives you an idea of what we're thinking about. So, a missional community is a group or a fellowship or a community that has 10 or more true followers of Jesus Christ who gather regularly for worship and prayer, biblical teaching and fellowship. They passionately seek to love God and obey His Word. They consistently walk by the power of the Holy Spirit. They generously invest their time, talent, and treasure in God's kingdom. They actively seek to draw people to Christ through life and word and deed. They have recognized spiritual leadership. They seek to multiply, becoming reproducing reproducers.
One of our foundations.
That's right, and is sustained by local resources. So as you look at this definition, it sounds like a church, doesn't it?
Or what it should be.
Exactly what it should be. But what we are exploring is what this looks like, I guess, on a smaller scale, if you will. Because in working in different cultures, when you use the word church, it has certain connotations. For example, I was talking with a couple from Romania, and for them, the church is a building, a place where you have a priest, an Orthodox priest, who has all this regalia. He has his golden staff, and he's the one who is the leader of that community. And so in their minds, that's what a church looks like. So you talk about planting churches, and they think, oh man, I can't do that. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, because there's a lot of history and tradition there, and God has used the Orthodox Church around the world in many ways. So, but now the point is that the church, its traditions, its way of engaging the community is falling short. And this idea of a missional community now allows the church to go into the community, just as God sent his son, Jesus, really as the first opportunity of sending, the first mission. And now we are trying to pursue that and follow that, to be incarnational, to reach out and connect with people. And so, again, this is a good definition. You can look at that and take in the different areas that it focuses on.
Let me see if I understand what you're saying. When we have that really traditional church that has real value and real significance, the liturgies and the rituals, and some, like the Orthodox tradition, we have very good friends and brothers and sisters in the Orthodox tradition, and they have icons and ways in which that they have found to really help them worship Christ. But sometimes when a person's coming out of a totally secularized, non-churched, non-believing background, it's like they can't relate to that at all in the first phases of their spiritual development.
Right.
And so what we're trying to figure out is, how can we help the church to play away? How can we get the church to go to where people are at and bring them step by step along this continuum? Is that what you're helping us understand?
Exactly. And so that's what we're calling a missional community, that you establish a community in the location where the people are. And so now, what better way to do that than through our medium that God has given us, sports? But why sports? Well, the foundational principle that we hold on to comes from Paul's teaching in 1 Corinthians. And here in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, Paul is actually defending his ministry. He's been questioned by people who are saying, what right do you have to take the gospel to the Gentiles? Who do you think you are? And now you're asking us to support you and give you money. And so in 1 Corinthians 9, he says, but I have freedom for the sake of the gospel. And I do this so that by all possible means I might save some. So to the Jew I become a Jew in order to win the Jews. To the weak I become weak in order to win the weak. So we like to say, hey, if Paul was alive today, he would be a musical athlete, because those are the two languages that are spoken around the world, no matter what country or culture you go into.
Or an athletic musician.
There you go. Yeah. And so here in verses 24 and 25, what's interesting is he actually uses a sports analogy. And he says, do you not know that in a race all the runners run, only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, and we do it to get a crown that will last forever. And so in those verses right there, what he's saying is that we're using whatever we can to pursue what will last for eternity. And what will last for eternity? Well, I believe three things: God, His Word, and the souls of men.
And people.
Right. And how do you connect with people? Through the tool of sport. And no matter what culture or language you go or you speak, what country you live in, people are watching, reading, participating in sports at all different levels.
Now, I happen to be the one that started that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
In my master's thesis, and I wrote about it, and I quoted an article from the Plain Dealer, which was a newspaper out of Cleveland, Ohio, that printed a national story, and they said that Miller Beer had done the research about what, if they could only advertise in one place, where should they go? And they found out sports. And this statistic has been wildly
Used and exaggerated.
exaggerated is right. But about 70% of the people in America at that time watched, played, read about, listened to, discussed some way once a week of sport. But even that was so much higher, and I've heard that statistic 95 and 99 and once a day, once
Whatever
an hour.
it is, it's a lot.
But it was once a week. It's about 70% if I remember right. But the interesting thing, Jonathan, is that research and development part of their company said that was the largest segment of people anywhere that they could attract one crowd from. And so it's really relevant to us to know that this is a strategy. And now, we talked about level 1, 2, and 3. Theologically, Paul has set the foundation.
What's the significance of Corinth, though?
Yeah, theologically, we want to make sure that we reach all people.
Right.
And it says, Paul says there, he's inspired by the Holy Spirit to write that I become this to the Jew and this to the person that's under the law, and this, and so that is the theological foundation. And what did sport then? Now that was chapter 9, 1 through 19 or so. He comes, why do I do all those things? Become all those things? So that I can reach some, so that I can win some. I can save some to the gospel. And so that would be our overarching theological foundation, and Rodger Oswald has helped you and I think both understand this very clearly.
But the significance,
Corinth,
yeah, there we go.
Corinth is the city that if it was today in the 21st century, it would be like where you and I sit here today.
Yeah.
In Canton, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Fame city for the American football. It's the center of American-style football around the world. Now, Corinth was like that in the ancient days for all of the sports world. I can still take you today, Jonathan, if we took a tour, I could take you to where that office was in downtown Corinth, ancient Corinth. That was the center. And so the people of Corinth would really understand this whole sports thing because all the sports people came.
Mm-hmm.
They had the largest athletic games every 2 years there. And so now we move from the theological that we've got to go reach everybody to the philosophical, how do we do that? All these different ways. And then he comes right at the end of that with the methodological sport. I'm going to give you in verses 24 to 27
There's the
a
clue.
sporting metaphor.
He's ahead of his time.
And he's saying, I'm going to demonstrate methodologically what I've already given to you theologically and philosophically. What a blessing we have for sports ministry today.
Well, it's almost as if God knew, the role that sport was going to play in our society and our culture, because here he is giving us a foreshadowing of what we should be using.
Absolutely.
And so, as you head on into this now sports ministry training, here's an assignment for you, and we're going to give you more assignments at the end. But you see on this screen it says memorize it. If you are at all involved in sports ministry, you need to memorize 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 25. There's no excuse, because these are the foundational verses with the foundational principle, one of the ones that we use the most to talk about why sports and sports ministry. So I strongly encourage you to memorize this. And so then as we move into this, though, we have to understand the difference between in sport and through sport, because there are people who are involved in the activity of sport, but then there are people who are not necessarily participating, but they're watching and following their favorite team. And so we have a diagram here we're going to show you relating to the sports world, and this comes from Lowry McCown and Valerie Ginn.
Ginn, yeah.
Ginn, yeah. And so within the sports world, though, we have the spectators. So these are the people who are watching and
go couch potatoes.
That's right, watching all these games go on. But then next you have the novice, and these are people who are learning a sport, or it might even be children who play
Right.
sports,
Beginners.
Then you have the leisure athlete who likes to play occasionally, is not so serious about it, but has a good time playing sports and recreation. But then in the next phase up are the players, and these are the ones who are committed to a team, probably committed more to weekly activity, participating in sports at some level. But then even above them, the next category, what we call the elite athletes, and these are the college level athletes, even high school, could be high school, college, or professional, Olympic, people who are committed and who have invested a large amount of time, and they're, in a sense, their world centers around sports and what they're doing in sport. And then even above them, you've got the high profile athletes, or the people in sport who are known around the world by one name, Tiger.
So these are the terminologies or the definitions that both Lowry and Valerie gave on this continuum.
Right.
And the folks on the first three, they would not define themselves as necessarily sports people, but those on the right side definitely would say that's what defines my life.
Right. And so this classification helps us to consider what we need to do to connect with them and reach them. And we have this dividing line that separates those who are more of the, what do you say, I don't want to use the terms there, spectator, novice, and leisure, but they're the people who are not actively in the sport itself.
They don't self-define themselves as a sports person.
Exactly.
The people on the right would.
Exactly. That's the definition. So now we need to think, okay, what is our target group and who do we want to reach? And so are we reaching the world of sport? Are we reaching the world through sport? And how are we going to do that?
And you do that different ways.
Exactly.
Because you use sport to reach those that they want to be involved in it, but they don't necessarily define themselves. And typically somebody who's high profile is not going to come to a sporting event, typically, because that's what they do every day for their job. So the high profile, those people who are known by one name, Pele, the great one,
Tiger,
LeBron,
or Michael Jordan even.
Yeah, Michael is probably not going to come to your church to play. Maybe, but so we reach the world through sport, or we reach the world of sport. This is what, when you are as an individual sports person or as a local church sports minister, we can help you understand how to do this. And this is where we're going with this, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So is this a good place to
So we're going to be
this
moving on and explaining that more in our next segment. But if you want to contact us or have any questions about this, this is some of the information on the screen that you can come to find us out on and figure out where we're going on all this. Now we're going next time, Jonathan, we're going to go a little bit more on this map, if you will, the McCowan map, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get these missional communities that are out there,
Right.
and how we can develop them and how your church can develop them to really reach people for Christ.
Yeah.
So,
But don't forget your assignment.
and that would be
To memorize 1 Corinthians 9, verses 24 and 25.
Yes, that's right. All right, so our next foundation topic, session 4, is going to be becoming a missional sports outreach multiplier. That's what we're going to be talking about on the next one. So be sure to join us then, and thanks for being with us during this time.
Thank you. Yes. See you.